hearing anybody. But welcome to the first success session of your final year of Blue Water Middle College. So I'm going to just go ahead and share my screen so we're not showing everyone's names there, but welcome, whether you're here in person or watching the video. I am going to hide your faces. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. Mrs. Barr is in there and she's going to answer any questions that people might have. So that is there for you, unless of course you're watching the recording. But welcome to this success session, which I know is on kind of the forefront of a lot of people's minds. I've been getting a lot of questions, I know we all have, about different things for applying to four-year schools. And it's that time of your life to start thinking about that. So that's the primary thing that we're talking about today, but a few other things. Wrapping up your high school diploma, hopefully your college degree. We'll talk about that stuff. Information for the next academic steps. Right now, the college application process is kind of the forefront of that. It'll be followed by the financial aid process, which will touch on really briefly, mainly just kind of introing what will happen next, and then just making sure that you're doing quality university applications. And part of that is just staying strong in your classes. Hopefully that first week has gone well and the second week is starting well. But as always, if you have questions about anything, let us know. Just kind of some announcements. Just a reminder that early alert grades will be posted on October 3rd. And those are just kind of your 6-week progress report. That's not your final grade, but it's just to kind of give you a heads up where you're at with things. If you're taking a late start class or like a partial term class, there wouldn't be grades posted for that. So obviously still kind of need to be touching base with your instructor and make sure you're tracking that. Registration opens on Halloween, which really it's the night before Halloween, Sunday night at midnight. And we don't really go through reminders on how to do the registration at this point, since you'll be getting ready for your final semester. And I think people have it down, but if you have questions, we can definitely meet and talk about that. And more often the questions that people have at this point are what to take to wrap up their degree or to fill electives, or what if you're not going to finish your degree on time. And we'll talk about all of those options today. And then our next success session, our other one for this semester, is the paying for college one. So that's about the financial aid process. It's given by Joe Kassar, the financial aid director for SE4, who is awesome. She's an expert in the field. Her presentation is really informative. I learned stuff about my own student loans, and she does point out basically the mistakes I personally made is what a lot of people make commonly. And so hopefully she can help you avoid those mistakes with it and just kind of give you some tips and tricks for that. Your parents are invited and welcomed and actually encouraged to attend. So if they can, that would be great. That will be in that big room 150 of the Welcome Center, or we'll actually be doing the Zoom, which I didn't update. That was going to be the Google Meet, but it'll be a Zoom that Tuesday of that week. So the Zoom will be first and then the in-person. I'll also be recording that Zoom. So if you're going to come on the 18th, but your parents can't come during the workday, that's totally fine. There will be that recording that they can watch after the fact. And there's tons of people on campus to help too. So first and foremost is just making sure that you're wrapping up your final high school graduation requirement. So most everyone, if you marched in your commencement last year, you finished all of your basic requirements, the 4 English, 4 math, and all that stuff. But the state requires all students to have, the wording of the law is really kind of vague, but it says all students must complete a math-related experience in their final year. So for us, your final year is your 13th year. Any middle college student across the state, that's the case, is that this extra year is your final year. Sorry, one second. So that is something that we did. I'll talk a little bit more about it, but we sent a letter home this summer with what you have left for your college degree requirements. And I did note in there, if you were registered for a class that would count for that. There's a ton of other stuff that does, in addition to obvious math, but astronomy, chemistry, a few other science classes, some business classes, So there's a number of things that can count there. And if you're not registered for something in the fall, you definitely need to plan to do that in the winter. And that will be something that if you have questions, you could just let me know. But it only counts if you take it this year. So a common question I get is, well, I had my 4 credits, I took calculus last year, or you took maybe your extra 5th credit last year. And that's wonderful that you did that, but you still have to take something math related this year. And there's tons of other things that can work if you've already finished the math requirement for your degree. But that was why we did warn you in previous years to save that requirement for this year. So you didn't have to take an extra, but there's a class called Personal Finance Business 199, which is awesome and actually really applicable to real life. So there's tons of stuff that can work. So once you finish that, and assuming you finished everything else already, I didn't see any names in here that are lacking any requirements. You would get your high school diploma next May. So you're still technically in high school, although hopefully it doesn't feel like it to you. You're just kind of full-time at the college and plugging away. It is a big year. You're taking, again, full-time credits. So you're basically doubling the number of credits that you have already earned in your first 2 years, since that was stretched a little bit, and just kind of easing in while you were also in high school. So ideally at the end of this year, you're completing 2 big things, the high school diploma and your college associate degree. So not everyone's on track for the associate degree. And a common question we get is, what if I am not going to complete my associate degree? Does that mean I don't get my diploma? And that is not the case. Basically, just completing the high school requirements, including that final year math, finishes the diploma. And so that is obviously like the first foremost goal, but the associate degree is just icing on the cake. And if you're going to be close, but not quite there, that's okay too. Take all that credit you got for free and you can take it to wherever your next step is. But it is time to lean in, not lay back. This is the year where a lot of people do get off track, because you start getting into higher level classes. You kind of checked off all the intro classes by now. So this is where people are a little bit more likely to withdraw or fail for a class. So just data wise, at the time of graduation, our statistics are about half of our students earn their associate degree at the end of 13th year. And then when we get data from like nationwide databases, basically, we find that another little chunk, about 16 or 17% of people get a degree within 2 years after that. So that could be they never were going to get the associate degree, but they earned that bachelor's degree or took a few more classes and earned the associate degree. So that's really good. 67% is much higher than the countywide average of people that have a college degree, but obviously that's quite a few people that aren't getting the degree. So typically what we see of why people don't, some change their program. Some people have gone from kind of a general thing to a very specific thing. I've tried to point out to people that are in that boat, if they're doing something specific and not going to be able to finish on time, sometimes you can do a similar degree that will help you finish on time. So I'll point that out, and I will talk a little bit about the letter that we sent home in just a second, just really teasing that. Now, a few people have only really focused on earning credits that they know will transfer to the 4-year school. Very, very rarely is that the way and the necessary way to go, but once in a while, people are doing something like a different health career, which is just like, there's a student I just worked with that's doing dental hygiene, and she's taken all the prerequisites here, and that's going to be pretty close to finishing an associate degree for her, but she's going to just focus on some other classes she can take there rather than finishing the associate degree. Sometimes that's what makes sense, but most of the time they're close enough where I would encourage you that if you can finish a class or two, if you can add in a class or two to finish that degree, it's worthwhile. But most of the time when people don't earn their degree on time, it's because they've either failed a class or withdrawn from classes. Usually there's even room in your schedule to fail or withdraw from one, but more than that usually will put you off track to finish on time. And that's where it often happens in their final year. You may be on track, have never withdrawn, and then you get into like a higher level math or science that really is very challenging. And so that's when maybe people first decide to try out the whole withdraw thing. But this is where we're always kind of trying to discourage you from that, but I really would try to talk you out of it at this point, especially if that is going to stop you from getting your degree. It can be costly. It can lead to obviously not getting your degree on time, as we were just discussing. But what that means is then if you end up with needing one more class to finish your associate degree, that means you're going to have to pay for that on your own. Whether that's finishing up at SE4 or transferring on to the 4-year school, that would end up being a class that you missed that opportunity, basically. It does show up as a W on your transcript, which that in itself, one W on there is not a huge deal, but if you've gotten kind of in a bad habit of withdrawing and you have multiple W's on your transcript, that can start to look bad to future employers and future colleges that maybe you don't finish what you start. So that would be something to really avoid getting into the habit of that. If you were had multiple withdraws or E's on your transcript, that can impact your financial aid opportunities or just being eligible for it at all. You have to maintain a 2.0 GPA and 2/3 completion rate. If you were in that boat, you would be aware of that right now, and we will definitely let you know if we see something like that approaching for you, depending on how things are going. And then it's just costing you the opportunity to learn how to face a challenge and overcome it. We've just been talking with our new students, our 11th graders. And just today I was talking with my group about that resilience and kind of cultivating resilience, learning how to be resilient and push through these challenges really, really help in success in college, but also in the future. And it's a big part of it, aside from just, how smart you are. College is basically getting challenged and then pushing through and still achieving or succeeding. So if you are thinking or you start thinking about withdrawing, let one of us know. You do need to basically meet with one of us on staff before you do anything, and then we'll walk you through the process. There are steps to take. Mainly this form is going to walk you through these steps where you meet with one of us. We'll need to communicate with your parents and make sure that they're aware that you're doing this. You must get academic help or do something to try to improve your situation before we would approve a withdraw. We would make sure, ask that you meet with your instructor, try some tutoring, and whether that's tutoring over the content, like you're having trouble just understanding what's going on in the class, or a lot of times where people get off track is that they're in an online class or even an in-person class where they just don't understand the work that they're supposed to submit. So that a tutor can help with that as well. We'll talk about those consequences of withdrawing that we just talked about here. And then once you confirm it, then we approve it and we would send that paperwork to SE4. Sometimes it does make sense that you've tried everything and it's just not going well, and it's really going to kind of crush your GPA. Something like that makes sense, but we do want to see that you have tried everything before you just kind of give up. We don't want people just to give up without trying. And oftentimes, well, not often, but sometimes it happens where people are not in as bad of a place as they think they are with their grade. I know I've met with multiple students in my time here at the middle college where they're panicked and they need to withdraw. They think they're failing. And then when they meet with their instructor, they find out they have a D, which is passing, or a C, which is transferable. Or I had a student actually she had a B. It was actually a good grade. And she just had thought a test went much worse than it did, or something was weighted more than it was. So we'll want you to make sure of that before we approve it. So the big letter I've been talking about was mailed home this summer, and that had all the information on your degree progress. It kind of listed out what degree SE4 has you listed as pursuing. So the Associate of Arts or Science or Criminal Justice or whatever your major is, your degree is. It did list out how many credits that you need to complete and then the exact requirements that you have left to complete. So that should have gotten to you. If you don't have that, you can let us know, or if you just have questions about it, you want to make sure everything you're doing this semester is going to work and kind of talk about what to do in the winter. We can set up meetings anytime to talk about that to make sure you stay on track or get on track. People were either kind of on track or not, and there wasn't really much to do about it. For example, we can pay for 34 credits in this final year for you because we can pay for 17 credits each semester. So if people needed 37 credits left to complete their degree, then that just kind of right off the bat, it shows that you're behind on things. But that doesn't mean we can't do some good planning to make sure you're taking the right classes with these 34 credits that you have left, to make sure that maybe you can just move on to the next step and not continue here for another semester or something. So those are the things that we can help you with. I can also help with discussing transferability stuff. A lot of people are in the situation where you don't have very many requirements left. You finished all the social science, humanities, science, English, math, and now you're just left with, I just need 15 credits of electives and I can take whatever I want. That's where we could really look at those 4-year schools, look at the transfer guides and see what can transfer from SE4 to that school for what you're thinking about doing. And then lastly, we can help you find advisors at the future colleges to double check all of this stuff. So that's super important at this point. Even if you have maybe like 3 to 5 places you're thinking about transferring to, we can do that work for each of those to make sure that everything you're taking here is going to transfer the way that you think it will or hope that it will. And they can confirm all of that stuff for us. So completing the degree, I think it has value. We all think it has value. That's why we're here. You probably also do. I definitely suggest and think that if you know you're going to be close and it's just a matter of taking 1 or 2 classes, even if you think you don't need the associate degree and you just want to take stuff that will transfer for your bachelor's degree, if it's going to be close, I really, really recommend getting the associate degree because you just never know what will happen. So a lot of people are going to be on time and you're on track. You'll get your degree in May and March in the commencement and participate in all the SE4 stuff. SE4 will also let you participate in the May commencement if you just only have 1 class left. So if you are super close to graduating, but you're just like 3, 4, 5 credits short, you can still apply for graduation, which we'll talk about more at our next meeting. And basically they'll say, okay, well, you still have this 1 class left. You'll come back and say, yeah, I'm going to take it over the summer. And they'll say, okay, cool. We're going to add you to the May graduation list. So that's an option if you're that close. If you're a little further behind and it's just a matter of electives, or even if you do have a requirement, it doesn't mean like some people will stay on at SE4 for fall semester and finish things up if you have a number of stuff left to do. But if you have very little left to do, you may still want to just transfer on to the 4-year school next year. And then you can do a thing called reverse transfer. And what that means is basically just your first semester at the new school, you're going to, at the end of the semester, once you get your passing grades, you would send your transcript from, let's say, Grand Valley back to SE4, and SE4 would put those classes on your transcript here. That would complete your degree. So actually, this is a thing that you can do kind of whenever. The current president of SE4, Dr. Snyder, just did this with her degree. She had been like a few of us on staff where she went to SE4 before transferring on to a 4-year school. She was probably more like me. I think Mrs. Barr finished her degree before moving on, but I just did a year here. Dr. Snyder just did a year here, and then she transferred on. But she found actually that the stuff she took at her 4-year school kind of matched what her degree was that she had been working on here at SE4 before she transferred. So she did the reverse transfer and just got her associate degree just in the last couple of months, which actually inspired me. And I think I'm going to look into doing it myself. But so you can just know that it doesn't have to stop you from moving on to the next step. We just need to be a little bit more mindful about the plan. And that's what I would encourage you to meet with any of us, but specifically me, because we can also talk about how your SE4 stuff will transfer to that school. Okay, so the college application process, this is a holdover from our old director, Mr. Spencer, who you probably remember from your early days in the middle college, but he always had these like cartoons and stuff. And I've always liked this one because it really does, it really embodies the fact that I think the college application process is still somewhat complicated, probably unnecessarily complicated. as well as the financial aid process. And so our hope is that through these years, as we've kind of taught you some of this stuff, you feel a little bit more confident in the process than maybe your classmates at your high school did, not really getting this side of it, the college side of it, but hopefully we'll clear up any other worries or concerns or questions you have today. So number one in the college application process is figuring out which colleges you want to attend or apply to. So the first thing you should look at is, will it help you actually achieve your goals? Do they have the degree you want to pursue? Oftentimes we hear of people that want to go to a particular school just because their friends are going there, or my whole family went there and it's just where I'm going to go, without really thinking about, oh, okay, I want to do kind of this specialized career, this specialized degree. Michigan State doesn't even have it, or whatever school you choose. So making sure that they have the degree you want is helpful. And then do they meet your other criteria of like, how expensive is it going to be? Is it private versus public? Sorry, the cost of things depends a little bit on whether it's private or public. The size of a school, and I did kind of point out in the in-person sections. Sorry, one moment. I'm not very good at multitasking. Sorry. So don't let a big school scare you away. And I'm probably biased coming from Michigan State. I think you probably have all seen me with this thing through the years, which I should take. That's it. So I wanted to go to a big school, but I found actually when I was there, you can make a big school very small for you, depending on the stuff that you get involved with and the people that you get to know there. You kind of start to build your little village kind of with your people that you meet in the dorm or at your work or in your program, in your kind of neighborhood. So don't let it completely make the decision for you, but I would just encourage you to try to get on as many campuses as you can to really just check out all of the options and see. But don't go to Michigan State or a giant school if you're like, I just definitely know I want to go to a small school, but I'm just kind of encouraging you to be open-minded in your searches. You'll look at how things will transfer, and that's something that I can help you with. There's a ton of stuff out there on the websites. If you are transferring from SE4 to an in-state school, you could probably do that research on your own, but I would recommend meeting with one of us to make sure that what you're doing is right before you take classes here that end up not transferring the way you think. Oftentimes I've come across students that they think a certain class is going to transfer, but they have just the number just a little bit off. Like they took CIS 110 thinking it was CIS 115 or something like that. So I would be happy to help you with that. The other thing to consider is, do you meet their criteria? So I'll show you this next chart is kind of just an example. This is from last year, something that the Michigan Department of Education puts together. And this is just averages. So the average GPA and the average SAT score for each kind of group of colleges here. So you can see Michigan here, they're saying the average GPA is a 3.8 or higher, and the average SAT score is pretty high, 1350 or higher. So that doesn't mean that people don't get in with a 3.5 or an 1100 on the SAT, but you just know that you're going to have to kind of maybe offset some of those things with the other. You might have that high GPA and a lower SAT, or vice versa, or you have a good story to tell. You have like a unique perspective to bring to that campus. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to kind of set yourself apart with the essays. And that's a big part where you can present yourself as kind of a whole person rather than just these numbers. But these numbers are good things to shoot for this year. And we'll touch on that you still have this whole year to impact that GPA and potentially retake the SAT. So that's just kind of a glimpse there. I will send all of this stuff in the follow-up email that I'll be sending to everyone with this video and all of these things that we're looking at. So once you identify, or as another part of identifying, these are good websites that can help you there. Big Future is really helpful. It's the website that is from College Board, which is the company that makes and puts on the SAT, AP tests, So they have a stake in the whole college process, and they have gathered a lot of good information there. These websites are also great. Parchment is okay. If you still have access to your Zello, that's also helpful. The next thing is knowing when to apply, knowing the deadlines for applying. You're here now probably because you're interested in getting started on this sooner than later, which is a good thing, but it's not, you're not behind. I've talked to a few students who are kind of already in a panic, feeling like they're behind, that they haven't sent their applications, and you are right on track. In fact, college application month is October. That's something that the state of Michigan and all the schools in state are kind of a part of. And there's a bunch of schools that will have free college applications that I'll show you in a second. But even the earliest application deadlines to do an early action or early decision, or just applying early, you could apply by November 1st and be part of one of these plans, basically. So if you apply as early decision or early action, these two things are where people think of, and there is some data to suggest that colleges that have these types of application like policies do admit more people that apply early like this, but it's not always, and it's not every school, and it doesn't match that every year. So early decision is something that a lot of the highly selective schools use, like U of M or Northwestern, the Ivy Leagues, stuff like that. So that would be that you apply as an early decision applicant, and if you get in, you are bound, you have to go to that school. So you are definitely not encouraged or really allowed to apply to multiple schools as early decision. But if that's your number one planned school that you've wanted to attend your whole life, and you know you're kind of on the bubble, early decision might be the way to go, because it really shows them how interested you are in that school. You can apply one school early decision and the rest early action. And basically that's just saying that you would apply early and get an earlier answer, and that is non-binding. So you don't have to go to that school. You don't have to commit to that school or any school really until May 1st, unless you do this early decision thing. But most of the schools people will be applying to are just regular decision applications. The Common App, a lot of schools are on that, and they kind of encourage the November 1st deadline, because a lot of schools do have that deadline. So that Halloween that time is usually a big rush for us to go in and approve things in Common App or write recommendation letters for people, which we'll talk about in a second. But so those are just reviewed in the order they come in. Some of the smaller schools like Western or Central, I heard of people applying in September and finding out in like 2 weeks whether they got in or not. So that's wonderful if you want a quick decision. Some of the bigger schools, if you apply by November 1st, they used to kind of get you an answer by Christmas break. Michigan State were sort of on that schedule. COVID pushed everything back with all the craziness the last few years. People were finding out like in January if they got in, but I expect as things are getting back to normal that will come back a little bit sooner, probably closer before Christmas break again. One deadline to keep in mind is that you should apply by March 1st to be eligible for the best scholarships available, because that's kind of the financial aid deadline for that. So if you kind of just the plan right now is work on the applications over the next couple months. Later this fall is when you'll start the financial aid applications and all of that process. So you don't have to be doing it all at the same time, and it's not all urgent, or as urgent as maybe hopefully, well, some people were feeling, I think. So many of the schools, most schools, you can just apply right online on their website. But you can also apply for many schools. U of M for sure. It used to be just a handful of private colleges or some schools out of state, but actually many schools are on Common Application. Common App is what people call it. Western is on there, Central is on there, Michigan State's on there now. I'm pretty sure Eastern is. I think Grand Valley is. So if there's certain schools that you're thinking of applying to, you may want to go through your list. go to their website, which I'll show you kind of how to do that in just a second, and see, okay, do I want to apply on their website or do I want to apply on Common App? If you find that like 4 of your 5 schools are on Common App, then you should just do that, because what that means is it's one application that goes to basically all of those schools. So you enter all your stuff once, you upload your transcript once. You do have to write essays depending on each school's requirements for that, or each school may have a few other different questions, but when you're doing it all in one place, and then it's getting sent everywhere. Now, application fees are still by the school. So you could do your Common App and end up having like several $100s worth of application fees, depending on the schools that you're applying to and when you're doing it. That leads right to the next thing, is that fee waivers are available. So if you are eligible for free or reduced lunch, or you were back when you were in high school or at the high school, or if you've met with Mr. Ruiz and talked about that, or if you think you might be available, you can meet with Mr. Ruiz. Basically, you can get fee waivers for all these college application fees, as well as waivers for SAT retake. So that would be a good thing, that if you think you're eligible, you should reach out to Mr. Ruiz about that. The other thing is that, well, they can be up to $100. I don't think I've seen more than that, but all that stuff can add up. But there's a number of schools that are free in October, or that are just free in general. Again, this list I'll be sending to you. All of these schools on the right are always free, or they were last year. I could not find anywhere the list for this year. I think it's just usually October is kind of the big push for this. So I think we're just a little bit ahead of things, which is a good place to be. But I can think that you'd probably be safe to assume that these will be pretty comparable this year. These codes might not be the same, but you can expect maybe the dates would be the same. So over on the left, these are schools that normally have an application fee, but they waived it for the month of October because of College Application Month. So, or Michigan College Month. So big ones here: Central, Eastern, Grand Valley, Lawrence Tech, Michigan State, Northern, Wayne State, Western. Just to point out, Michigan State was just that first week, as well as, I know there was another one, Northern Michigan. And then some of them had codes, or some of them just removed the fee for that month. So what I would recommend based on all of this is to get all your stuff ready for the next little over a month. We're just about to start September, so you pretty much have the whole month of September. Get it all set up, get your recommendation letters, do your essays, do every piece of your application, but wait to submit it until October 1st hits, and hope that, I'll send you information as we get it with the schools that will have either free applications always, or specifically will have it during the month of October. So that's basically kind of your task for the next month, is to get all that stuff ready to go if you really want to be like first out of the gate with it and free during application month. So the big question that people have, am I applying as a freshman or a transfer? You are applying as a freshman. 4-year schools in Michigan are very familiar with middle colleges, and their guidelines for it all is that they consider you a freshman as long as you have not taken high school classes or college classes after your high school graduation. And you won't get your high school diploma until May, and you'll be done with your college classes by then. You can even take a summer class, and they still count that as you're applying as a freshman. Now, if you were to take classes at SE4 next fall, a year from now, that would then push you into being a transfer. The reasoning for that is that it's to your benefit. The 4-year schools have decided that that's best for you because they have a bigger pool of scholarship money for freshman merit scholarships. So that's why they do that. Now, sometimes transfer applications are it's a little bit easier to get in as a transfer student, but I would say use that as a backup plan. If you don't get into your dream school, that would be something we could talk about later. But as far as the scholarships, freshman is the way to go, and 4-year schools will actually kind of require you to do that, or ask that you do that. The other big thing that people get confused by is the Blue Water Middle College is your high school. Port Huron Northern is not your high school. Yale is not your high school. You did go there, you took classes there, you felt very much a part of that community, which is wonderful, but your official high school is Blue Water Middle College. If you put a different high school than Blue Water Middle College on your transcripts, or sorry, on your applications, or you send transcripts from the wrong school, that will create a bit of a paperwork nightmare, and will be sort of a big problem later on. So please make sure you're putting the right stuff, Blue Water Middle College as your high school. They will also ask you, so you're a freshman, you went to Blue Water Middle College, have you taken any college classes? And you'll say yes. They'll ask you where. That is where you enter your SE4 stuff, because that is the college that you're actually getting credit from. So I know all that's kind of confusing because you've been a part of basically 3 different schools for the last 2 years, but your Blue Water Middle College is your high school, SE4 is your college. Okay, so we'll talk more about the transcripts for each of that, but it's important to really make note of that. Follow the steps carefully. You'll just kind of go through and answer the questions that they ask you. As you create new accounts or applications, make sure you're writing down your usernames and passwords and save all the emails. I think this is where I should point out that when you're entering, usually they'll ask for your email, and that's usually kind of your username to get started. Or maybe you make a username, but you still put your email in. I would encourage you to use a personal email that you will have after you're done with us. So your SE4 one will still exist, but you won't be checking it that often once you're done with us. And this is an email that Michigan State or wherever the next place will email you some stuff there after you're done with them. So that's important that they have your personal email that you'll have kind of forever. I joked in the in-person session, I still have my Hotmail that I made at MSU, and they still send me stuff. So make sure you have your, like a Gmail or something like that. Definitely don't use your high school email, but that has probably disappeared by now already. And definitely don't use your BWMC one that you used to get into the Chromebook, because that will disappear at the end of this year once you graduate. So use a Gmail, make sure you're keeping all of this stuff written down and organized. So you'll do the application kind of at the same time. You can request your transcripts. You can do it at the end of your application. Usually you'll hit submit and they'll say, okay, cool. Now we need your high school transcript and we need your college transcript because you said you did some college. They always will want your high school transcript for the application process, and they're going to ask your high school GPA. You received an invite to set up a Parchment account through us. That went to your SE4 email last week. And I think a number of people had set that up and were all set up and ready to go there. And I saw people were requesting and ordering transcripts to be sent to colleges or to themselves. You can request it to be sent to yourself so that you can see what it will look like when it's sent to a four-year school. You can also email any of us and we could send you a PDF of your transcript for you to have saved, because one thing that they'll ask you for is your high school GPA. Your high school GPA is what's on your high school BWMC transcript that comes from us. So looking it up on the college, like the service center, is not going to be an accurate high school GPA. Using stuff that you have from Northern or wherever is not going to be accurate, because that's not your accurate high school GPA. It's your BWMC that has both your high school and your college in it. So we'll look a little bit at Parchment, or basically this next one is just showing you sort of what that email looked like that came from Parchment. If it doesn't say Blue Water Middle College Academy, then that is not the right thing to set up. So don't actually accidentally go back to like your high school Parchment account. You need the Blue Water Middle College account. So that just came in last week. We can resend it if you're not finding it, but hopefully you should be able to see it. You click the button, register your free account, and it walks you through the steps to set up your account. And then it's very user friendly to just order a transcript. I think there's a button right up top that says order transcript or order, and then you select transcript. So that's kind of the basics for the high school. So they are looking at all of your high school stuff and your SAT score because you are applying as freshmen, but they do also want to see your college or your college transcript as well. And that will be they'll kind of generate that question to say, okay, send us your college transcript as well, because once they ask if you've taken college classes and you say yes, now they're going to be interested in how that went. That's also ordered online, but on a separate website at se4.edu/transcript. It costs money for those transcripts. So you maybe don't need to send it until you are asked to send it. Most colleges will ask for it, but you don't have to send it unless they do. During the admission process, they're just using it to see like, how did things go? They're not looking at your transfer stuff at this point, but they will want it after you're done with the school year. And then that's where they do your credit transfer. So you'll send it now as part of the application process, and then probably you'll send it again at the end of the school year once things end in May and we get your grades on there, which usually takes a few weeks after the semester is over. So like mid-May, you can then start sending your final college transcript and BWMC transcript to the schools. And that's basically just going to be your one school that you commit to. And usually that's part of the process of like, okay, your orientation is in June. Here's what we need you to do before that. Send your final transcripts from both your high school and your college. As you do all this stuff and submit your transcripts, you could do that now. You could do that tonight where you go in and order your transcripts. These are all electronic. So you'll send it, you'll get an email that says, okay, cool, we requested it. You'll get another email once we go in and approve it. And then you'll get another email once this four-year school opens it up and downloads it. So you can see where it's at in the process. The SE4 site is similar, pretty much the same. You'll get email updates for that as well. These are all just going to be out in the cloud. So you could order your transcript to go to like 20 different places, although, you know, just be making more work for us, but that's okay if you're still kind of thinking about all those places. But until they get your actual application, they don't download your transcript. So don't worry about it being out there and that somebody's going to like see it and decline you or something. But you will want to send it before the application deadlines because they need that in order to consider your application to be completely submitted. Once the colleges get your applications, and oftentimes this is where people will say, oh, I applied to Western, I sent my transcript, but they're asking me for my transcript. I don't understand. Like I already sent it. I've sent it like 4 times on parchment. And then we go and communicate with the advisor there or the admissions person there. And they're like, well, yeah, we need the college one too. So it's important that when they're communicating with you, they're going to email you or send you letters or call. Some of them will text you, the admissions people. It's important that you respond to them and that you are nice to them and try to build a relationship with them. A lot of times people look at admissions people as like these gatekeepers that hold their fate, your fate in their hands. And that's not true. It's actually kind of the opposite, where their goal is to get people from their area, which they would maybe represent St. Clair County or the whole thumb, or they like we'd be in their area and they want their people to go to the school. So they're actually the people that are advocating to you, advocating for you to the overall admissions committee. So definitely being nice and responding to them promptly and professionally is really good. Now, if they start texting you and say, hey, Carrie, we need your SE4 transcript. I got your middle college transcript, but I need your SE4. If they're casual with you, it's okay to be casual and friendly back, but just kind of match whatever tone they're giving you, as with pretty much any emails that you're doing. We'll be doing some visits. I've just kind of been getting the school year up and running, but then once things slow down a little bit, we're going to get back to doing in-person college visits, and I'll communicate that with you as we get a plan for places. But if you aren't decided on where you go or where you want to go, I definitely recommend getting out onto some campuses and seeing just what it's like. That's definitely the best way to decide. And we actually, a few years ago when we went to Saginaw Valley, we ended up, our tour guide was actually like the admissions director, and I'm not really sure how he ended up with us instead of, usually it's like students that work on campus that give the tours. but he was giving the tour and said, they like almost to hear that somebody say, well, I'm not coming here. I'm going to Western, but I'm just here because my school's coming here and I decided to come for the day. That he's like, sometimes you might have that plan and then you get on a different campus and then it's just like, I don't know what it is, but this is the place for me. So that's really kind of a unique thing that maybe you've already experienced and you know where you want to go, but definitely getting on a campus helps in that decision. Sorry, just want to go forward. So application essays, not every school requires them, but when they are required, it's important to really knock it out of the park, basically. But this is where you tell your story. So this is where you can kind of help supplement the story that they're seeing, which is just data. It's just your SAT scores, your GPA, your AP classes that you've taken, the scores you've gotten on your AP tests. What extracurriculars does everyone list out, and how do you kind of match up with everyone else who's also saying kind of the same stuff? So that the essay is really where you can set yourself apart and show them what unique perspective you would bring to that campus. And that's what they're looking for. So they want the grades and all of that, but you can really offset some challenges in your data by telling what makes you unique. And the middle college, the fact that you did this is a great thing to talk about. If you have nothing else that you feel like a challenge you took on, this was a big one that you took on, and hopefully it went well. Even if things don't go well, that's sometimes a good story to tell, that like I started at the middle college during COVID, which all of you did. And, they're probably going to get a lot of COVID essays. I'm sure they're probably like to the brim with COVID essays, but telling your unique perspective of it can be really helpful. But it can just be, I got to school, I struggled, and I turned things around, and now my GPA has improved every semester. These are the things that I've done different. This is what I've tried. But this is your opportunity to like brag about yourself. Another thing that I've heard at a workshop before is the stuff that makes you unique is actually maybe the things that you feel like make you weird, the things that your friends make fun of you for, or your family makes fun of you for, those like weird interests that you have that you feel like no one else really like gets. That's the story to tell. That's the interesting thing about you that can kind of set you aside from everyone else. So the story is good, but also you need to make sure that you have that proofread and that there's no misspellings, there's no grammar errors, that it's well written, that it makes sense, that it flows well. All of those things are where getting some proofreaders on it will be really helpful. And I would say show it to like 10 people, not just one or two. You can send it to all of us on staff. You can send it to your English instructors, any SE4 instructors that you like and trust. Your high school teachers are usually open to you emailing them and saying, hey, I miss you guys. Can you help me with this? So use any adult, your parents, your family, your boss at work, whoever you trust to look through it. And a lot of times they might be the people that know you best that are going to be like, oh, why don't you talk about this awesome thing that you did that you might not even think of? So work on those. Now, even if they are optional, it is worth doing an essay and putting it out there and telling your story, especially if you feel like you are on the bubble as far as the GPA and SAT scores when we're looking at that chart that has that kind of the average scores there. After you get accepted, so kind of the timeline is you'll apply this fall, hopefully by November 1st. Hopefully you'll hear by Christmas. Once you do your applications is when you can start thinking about financial aid stuff. So the FAFSA does not even open until October 1st. So there's nothing you can do right now for financial aid. You could kind of start looking around websites for scholarship stuff, but October is a fine, acceptable time to start. The FAFSA does open in October. Your parents would need to basically submit their tax information for last year. So that's usually the hardest part, is finding your tax information from last year. So I'll send maybe a site that can give you a head start and kind of show you what things you'd want to get gathered up for the FAFSA in the follow-up that I send today or after today's session. So I will send that. If you're not there yet, don't stress. This is just, if you check all these things off and you're ready to just keep rolling, you can kind of start preparing for it. But the way to go, if you have questions, is to come to our next success session in November. So that would be, the Zoom will be Tuesday, November 15th, the 2 in-person sessions on the 18th. Parents are invited. I've already talked about that, but it's really a helpful thing. If you still have questions after that, the SC4 financial aid people will help you with anything, even realizing that you're not going to continue at SC4. They help you with financial aid for other schools. They're just helping with financial aid. They don't care where you're going, basically. I'm going to just kind of give a brief look at just finding the application or how to apply somewhere. So if you were just following my research starts on Google, I would say CMU application right off the bat. They're trying to trick you and send you to Carnegie Mellon in Pennsylvania. We don't want that. We want Central Michigan. And so this is where you kind of need to look around. Almost every page has apply all over it. So you click that, and now you're kind of in the application portal here. This is where you're going to specify if you're returning. So this is where you would access if you have already started it. You can start your applications, save your progress, log out, and come back and log in. So here's where you can see, you can also apply through Common App. So if it were me, I would say, add that to my Common App list. But you can also start here. This one right off the bat asks us for information before, and then it makes us like activate our email address. So we're going to try another school to show you kind of some other options. Talk about my alma mater, MSU. And here, let's see where, oh, apply is right up here. So it brings us to the page. So sometimes you have to look around, but it's usually right in sight almost anywhere you would be on the website. So this I wanted to show you because this shows the different types. So first year applicant versus transfer applicant. You are going to college for the first time, even though that doesn't really make sense because you're not, you've already been here. But if you click here, it lists right away. This includes early and middle college students. So, okay, cool, I'm in the right place. So they're going to call you first year applicants. They're going to call you freshmen. I think that's usually the only labels I've heard. But so this will kind of lay out what you need. And basically what you're looking for is the start your application. So you can see, you can do this on the website or you can do Common App. So you may want to do Common App. So I'll just kind of show you when you get over to Common App, start your application. Right off the bat, first year transfer, you are a first year. And then it'll just start asking you to enter your information and set up your account. So I'm not going to do that. So I'm not getting spammed with a bunch of admissions people telling me to finish my application. But that gives you a basic of how to get started. The fact that you can work on it, save your information, log out and come back to it means work on stuff. You can usually like skip past it if you have a question about something and fill in more and come back to it. So you could kind of make yourself a list of questions you have for each of your applications. And that's where you can email, call, text any one of us, and we can answer those questions quickly for you. Or you could gather them all together. And I've had many people kind of gather all the questions and come in and sit with me for half an hour. I answer the questions, they enter it, they submit it right then and there. So that's, both of those are great options. The other side of it is that at the same time that you're messing with all of this and working on plans for the future, you're still in your final year. So you still want to keep strengthening your transcript and making the stuff better, making that data better, the GPA and potentially the SAT to retake that. Your transcripts are evidence of your abilities and work ethic. Make sure that they're strong. The average returning student, basically you've got about 6 to 10 classes complete, which is about 30 to 32 credits complete on average. There's people that have more, there's people that have less. The GPA is usually right around 3. which is people have more, people have less. But this coming year, you're going to take another 8 to 10 college classes. So you're doubling what you've done. So that's a lot of opportunity to really affect your GPA for better or worse. So make sure that you're improving it instead of it going the other way. The main thing, we always have been talking about this, stay above a C. Keeping all your grades above a C mean they're going to transfer. But if you do end up with a D, that could be okay. Let's just talk to us and we can help you figure out the plan of like, should you try and retake it? Or should you just wait and have it not transfer, take something else if that's an option? But that's where we can really help you with the transferability questions. Be careful with how much you're working. I know that it's super tempting, especially in your 13th year, where you're full-time at the college. I work with so many students who are scheduling everything online and working like 40 hours a week, or they're scheduling everything on Monday and Wednesday, which makes for some really, really long Monday and Wednesday on campus. And then they're working every other day, really schedule time in to do the work, do the homework, work on these college applications and the financial aid stuff. Because I know you're working to bring in more money, but if it's at the detriment of your grades, it's just going to cost you more money. And as far as like not being eligible for those scholarships. So it's a really tough balance. I get that, but just be careful with it, basically. Get help as soon as you need it. Know your syllabus, communicate with your instructor. Face-to-face is best. Phone and email are great. But if they're not answering you, let us know. These things we've been telling you every time we talk to you. So you're hopefully pretty familiar with that at this point. The last thing to show you is this updating your EDP, your educational development plan. So I will send you this link, and actually I will pop it in the chat as well if you don't want to wait for the email, because it'll probably be tomorrow before I'll send this email follow-up. There's the link for that. So this is your EDP, your thing that you have to have on file each year. We have to have everybody update it every year. Let's see, I put it up here. It's, if you recall, a Google form. You are going, well, you guys won't, but other people that aren't at this session are going to say, I already did this. And I'll have to say, yes, I know. You have to do it every year, and it's the same thing every year. Although we do kind of adjust it a little bit, because as you get further along, your progress towards your degree is a little bit further along, right? So I have some stuff already entered in just to kind of show you, but you want your info. The next page is asking about kind of, do you know where you stand for your degree? So I have all this stuff filled in, because what I want to get to is this last piece. Well, actually, there's a couple of last pieces where we're asking again, and I know we ask this all the time, what career are you thinking? What college are you thinking? What education do you need? If you're not going to do more college, which I know not everybody is, you may be going into military, trades, the workforce. There are a number of people doing applied degrees that are set you up to kind of start working right away. If you're doing any of that, you should enter that there. We just kind of want to know what your plan is. And then the last page is just the general like EDP stuff, where you're choosing the career pathways, your learning style, career planning activities you have completed, which you have all done this. Hopefully you've met with an SC4 advisor, but if you haven't, you should. And I believe the number for that is actually linked on that last page. List your extracurriculars, hobbies, skills, long-term goals, and hit submit. So that's how you do that. That is your homework for this. And yeah, once you do that, let me know if you have questions. But oh, the other thing I wanted to point out is, I think it asks you to say 5 colleges or 5 career ideas that you're thinking, or whatever number it tells you. It's okay if you have it narrowed down and you know you're just doing the one career plan right now, and it's just 1 or 2 colleges that you're thinking of. I would recommend, and I didn't make a slide for this, but I would recommend, depending on where you think you're applying, many of you will have kind of that dream school where maybe you're going to be on the bubble as far as the application requirements, like your GPA and SAT scores. So you can kind of have one dream school some regular ones like middle ground, and then for sure a safe school. So you can use that list that was on here to find your little chart where you can say like, okay, maybe U of M is the dream. I have a couple from each of these, and then I'm for sure going to do something from this list down here. And these are great schools. These are not bad schools. They just have somewhat lower requirements to get in. Okay, so you're gonna do the EDP, and I'll give you a few weeks before I'll bug you and then give you some deadlines for that. But if you could do that in the next week or two, that would be great. Looping back around to these dates that we've already discussed, you'll get your early alert grades on October 3rd. You'll register on Halloween or the night before, basically on the 30th, Sunday night at midnight. And then you'll come to the success session. If you can't make it to one of these live versions, we will send the video for that, just like we will for this. But really, I recommend you take that information in. Even if you're thinking you're not going to college right away, you have more time to finish here, or you think you're going to do military, trades, whatever. I think it's helpful to get this information so you at least have the baseline in case you change your mind later. But Mrs. Bart, I think, is probably still with us, but either both of us or I will stick around and answer any questions you have. I'm going to stop recording.